The first week of October, I mentioned this. We talked about this right here on this program on the air. And I wasn't really taking it seriously. I thought this was virtue signaling to the Trump base. You know, the freaks, the genuine haters, the white Christian nationalists, the people like, Pete Hegseth, who have the Crusader cross tattooed on his chest. I mean, these kinds of nutcases who think that if you're not a white male Christian, you're not really an American, that kind of stuff. There was this national security presidential memorandum that Donald Trump issued, and back in September, just 4 months ago, and or 3.5, whatever. And it included, it said that the government was going to come after you essentially, or investigate you if you displayed any of the indicators of potential domestic terrorism. So if any of these things apply to you, according to this memo, which again, back in September, I thought was just virtue signaling like a joke. If any of these things apply to you, you might be a domestic terrorist and the FBI might come after you, or at least, that's the way it was presented. And they included, and I quote, this is from the memo itself, from Trump's National Security Presidential Memorandum number 7, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on the family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality. So have you ever spoken ill of our country or its policies, particularly under Trump? That would be anti-Americanism. Have you ever trash-talked capitalism or praised socialism or, on social media? That would be anti-capitalism. Ever publicly questioned Christianity or profess loyalty to Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, paganism, or any other non-Christian belief system or religion? Have you embraced the trans or the larger queer community? Have you spoken out in defense of single parents or gay marriage or same-sex couples adopting children? Have you said things or carried a sign that might hurt the feelings of masked ICE agents, Donald Trump or Kristi Noem? I mean, when this came out in September, just imagining that any of those things could trigger an FBI investigation of you or me just seems so bizarre that I didn't take it seriously. I mean, I reported on it here and I talked about it and I said, this is bizarre stuff. And neither did the mainstream media. This was a one-day story and it was pretty much confined to MSNBC. I'm not even sure it made CNN. It was just a one-day story. I wrote about it in a October Saturday report. I did an article about it, and then that was it. Again, I didn't think that this was an actual plan to set up a Russia-style police state right here in America. I thought this was just virtue signaling to the Republican base. Turns out I was wrong. Now, in a second bombshell report, Ken Klippenstein has obtained and published a copy of a memo that Attorney General Pam Bondi sent to the FBI on December 4th, which is what, last week, ordering the FBI to actually begin Russia-style investigations of people and groups who fit into the categories that I just described. Not only that, she ordered the FBI to go back 5 years in their research and their investigations of our social media posts, our protest attendance, and any other activities to find any evidence of our possible following of these now forbidden views and beliefs. Just being an anti-fascist, according to Pam Bondi, being opposed to fascism, according to Pam Bondi, is now apparently a crime in America. This is from her memo to the FBI. This is the official memo from Attorney General Pam Bondi to Kash Patel, to the director of the FBI, directing him to direct his agents to investigate people who are anti-fascist. It said, quote, further, This anti-fascist ideology that paints legitimate government authority and traditional conservative viewpoints as fascist connects a recent string of political violence. Carvings on the bullet casings of Charlie Kirk's assassins' bullets read, "Hey, fascist, catch," and "Bella Ciao," an ode to anti-fascist movements in Italy. ICE agents are regularly doxxed by anti-fascists, and calls to dox ICE agents appear in the same sentence of opinion pieces calling the Trump administration fascist. End of quote. At the same time, ICE has a larger budget than any police agency in the world outside of Russia and China, bigger than any police agency in the United States, ICE. And the Brennan Center just yesterday published a report titled, "ICE Now Wants to Go After Dissenters as Well as Immigrants." Dissenters, as in protesters. And the Brennan Center for Justice report says that ICE has now acquired, quote, "a smorgasbord of spy technology, social media monitoring systems, cell phone location tracking, facial recognition, remote hacking tools, and more." They've got these Stingray devices that imitate spoof cell phone towers. So your phone connects to them and they can, listen to everything you're doing and saying and download everything on your phone. They're tying into a nationwide network of license plate readers, airport facial recognition systems, and using federal drones to monitor people that they consider enemies of the agency. They're carefully combing your social media content for posts, likes, and reposts. Brennan Center said, quote, "Homeland Security Investigations recently signed a multi-million-dollar contract for a social media monitoring platform called Signal Labs that claims to ingest and analyze more than 8 billion posts a day. The agency is also paying millions to Penlink for monitoring tools that gather information from multiple sources, including social media platforms, the dark web, and databases of location data." In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear, but before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option. With $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy of The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes 2. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. this language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender non-conforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, the historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines, because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the Wednesday to you. It's a brand new day. We've got a lot to talk about today. We have one guest, our first guest of the week, actually, in our third hour. And I want to start out with Alligator Alcatraz, how tyranny starts with those people. We'll get to that in a moment. Also, Democrats are winning in Trump territory. Is Trump losing his touch? Big news out of Florida, but also Iowa. Well, I'll get into that in a few minutes. And Trumpistan, The Trump administration is planning to ask visitors, including from Britain and France, where no visa is required, to America to disclose 5 years of social media. Can you only visit here if you love Trump? Or is this an attempt to shut up people who are outside the United States, who might otherwise be inclined to post something on social media that Trump might find offensive or embarrassing or, simply critical of him? Also, Sonia Sotomayor silences, this is in the second hour of our program, silences the Supreme Court chamber with a blistering challenge to Trump's lawyers. Also, is Russia planning on a massive terrorist attack on Europe and the U.S.? And what does this say about Trump's support of Russia and his now dissing Europe in this new national security summary? Also, Governor J.B. Pritzker is restricting immigration enforcement outside state courthouses. That makes it easier and makes it easier to sue immigration agents if your rights have been violated. Hail to those who fight back. JB is doing a good job, a great job in Illinois. In the third hour of our program, our one guest for the day, Donald Goldmacher, is going to drop by. He's got a new movie out. Well, it's actually updated. I narrated this movie, Heist, some years back, and now they've updated it for 2025, How the Billionaires Stole America. He's going to tell us about that. Also, Republicans have no health care plan other than stealing from you to enrich billionaires. Are you surprised? Yeah. But to start out, Alligator, Alcatraz, how tyranny always starts with those people. My daily take today, Amnesty International just came out with a new report on the U.S. detention sites, Alligator, Alcatraz, and Chrome. And I mean, this is just wild stuff, what Amnesty International has found. We're talking about torture. We're talking about enforced disappearance. We're talking about a deliberate system designed to break people whose crime is a misdemeanor. It's the equivalent of a jaywalking ticket, being in this country without authorization. Yes, it can lead to deportation, but I mean, this is not a felony. And on top of that, they're giving these concentration camps. There's no other way to describe them. Cutesy names, Alligator, Alcatraz, Cornhusker, Clink, isn't that cute? Yeah, right. This is how authoritarians always start, by softening the language, masking the abuses, calling them logistics or law enforcement or processing rather than cruelty. And if you want to condition the public to accept state violence, you always start with euphemisms like this. Investigators found people packed into filthy tents and trailers where toilets overflowed onto the floors and into sleeping areas. Water was sometimes rationed. Food quality was lousy. Insects swarmed at all hours. Lights were left on day and night. Cameras were pointed at toilets and showers, a clear violation of both privacy and human dignity. And these were not accidents. These were choices. There was a so-called box at the Florida concentration camp. It's a 2-foot by 2-foot outdoor metal cage where detainees, shackled and already vulnerable, were left in blistering Florida heat, exposed to mosquitoes and biting flies, denied water, and forced to endure punishment sessions lasting up to 24 hours. This is the kind of stuff George W. Bush was pilloried for, the kind of torture we inflicted on people in Afghanistan and Iraq. And this is the kind of stuff that we used to condemn foreign dictatorships for doing. And today, it's happening right here. At Chrome, that was at Alligator, Alcatraz. At Chrome, Amnesty documented prolonged solitary confinement, routine shackling, even during medical transport, denial of legal access, and a pervasive system of intimidation and retaliation. Medical care often delayed or unavailable. People needing lawyers were blocked from talking to them. This isn't a processing system. This is a punishment regime. It's brutality being done with your and my tax dollars and in our names. And these are not isolated violations. This is the design of this system. This administration has woven cruelty into policy. And, the crisis for American democracy isn't just that the camps exist, it's that they're being normalized, they're being bureaucratized, they're being branded, they're being replicated. Amnesty warns the DHS is already planning more such sites using, quote, emergency authorities and no-bid contracts to create a detention network beyond the reach of the courts, beyond the reach of normal or meaningful oversight. This is exactly how authoritarian systems evolve. They never begin with the political opponents. They always start with the most marginalized people. With, the Nazis started with the trans community and then went after the communists. Here, they're starting out with immigrants and refugees, the poor, non-citizens, those without family or money or social standing. And when the public tolerates a government doing this sort of thing, treating one group of human beings as disposable, that system almost always, unless it's stopped, and we need to stop this, that system expands to inflict that same treatment on others, on dissidents, on political opponents, on politicians, on people like you and me, whenever they think it's politically useful. We have seen this in nation after nation, the slid from democracy into authoritarianism. Look at Russia, look at Hungary, look at Egypt, look at Turkey, look at, the list goes on, right? Once the public is desensitized to cages, to beatings, to disappearances, to secret courts, it becomes just frighteningly easy to redirect those exact same tactics against journalists, against labor leaders, against activists, against political opponents, and against average people like you and me who stand up and speak out. This is and this is, by the way, is not just a humanitarian alarm bell. This is also a constitutional one. We've basically suspended due process for these people. And when you suspend due process for anyone in a society, you functionally suspended due process for everyone. It's just a matter of when it's going to get around to you. When the government can hide detainees in a swamp with no legal representation, it's already established the machinery to detain anyone that it wants to silence. When the public is conditioned to see cages and brutality and think, oh, well, this is fine, the moral system of the nation starts to collapse. We forget that the Constitution doesn't protect itself. And it's not just this goes all the way back to the 10th century or the 11th century. These systems are protected by norms, culture, public outrage, legal oversight, and a shared belief that the state doesn't get to brutalize human beings. But that is being thrown out the window right now by the Trump administration. And when those norms erode, when brutality becomes invisible but known or acceptable, authoritarianism, shows up in a big way. So Amnesty is demanding the immediate closure of Alligator, Alcatraz, and any similar state-run black sites. They call for an end to emergency authorized detention, a prohibition of outdoor punitive confinement, the restoration of access to legal counsel, real medical care, due process, judicial oversight, and a halt in the no-bid construction of these new concentration camps in America. These are not radical demands. They're the bare minimum that a nation that claims to believe in the rule of law can follow. This is how every authoritarian regime in history has done, literally. And unless we stop it now, this is how Trump is going to do it too. This is how the Republicans will do it to all of us. Reach out to your members of Congress. 202-224-3121 is the telephone number. And let them know that this new study by Amnesty International is absolutely shocking, and it's not much making the media.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And share this story with everyone. You can find it, it's free, over at hartmannreport.com. And welcome back. Morris in Inglewood, California. Hey, Morris, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Who was it that said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere?
Yeah, I don't recall, but it's a great saying. I'm familiar with it.
Martin Luther King. It was Martin Luther King. And now check this out, Tom. I want to talk to you this morning about the transfer of wealth. Now, suppose that I'm talking about the United States. Suppose we were to nationalize our oil reserves. Now, Texas and Saudi Arabia, they're similar. Of course, we're the number one oil producers in the world. But, if you go to Texas, where all that oil is, people have poverty. If you go to Saudi Arabia, there is no poverty in Saudi Arabia.
Actually, there is.
Why don't we just...
There's widespread poverty in Saudi Arabia, but it's among the imported foreign workers by and large. But back to you.
Okay. No, but you're right. I appreciate that detail, Tom. But my point is that the citizens, they live a whole lot better in Saudi Arabia than they do over here. And I'm just thinking if we were to national, and the reason why I'm saying that, Tom, if you look at who benefits from our oil reserves, it's a very small group. And if you were to take a look at who would benefit if we nationalize, like Mossadegh and Gaddafi and Ibrahim Traoré, if we were to nationalize our reserves, the people would live a whole lot better. The government could do more for the people.
Look at what Alaska did, Morris. Every citizen of Alaska, including like babies, I mean, every man, woman, and child in Alaska every year at the end of the year gets a check that runs anywhere from as little as $1,500 to as much as $4,000 or $5,000, and it's because they require all those oil companies to pay them a fee for any oil that's extracted from the land in Alaska. Every state could do that. The United States could do that. It's called the Alaska Permanent Fund. I mean, look it up. It's amazing. It's one of the most effective anti-poverty measures in the United States.
I knew I wasn't crazy. Well, I probably am, but that's still a good idea. I want you to know this too, Tom. In the L.A. County supervisors, they passed an ordinance saying that ICE, they can no longer wear their mask. They can't wear their mask anymore. And this might be the time, in my opinion, Tom, to go balls out for a single pair. Okay, if these folks get ready to have their premiums go up 10,000%. This is the time for people to get out there and say a single pair. And I want to ask you, so I'll leave you with this, Tom. Christy Noem, she violated a court order, okay, and the judge is getting kind of upset with them because they didn't return those people who were arrested, for not having their paperwork with them. Now, if there is an arrest warrant for Christy Noem, who arrests her? Who has the responsibility to pick her up?
Well, that's the problem, is that the Trump administration has. It's corrupt from the top all the way, down to the middle levels. Nobody's going to arrest Christy Noem.
Now, Tom, that's scary as hell. That's scary as hell.
No, it is. It really is. I mean, we are standing, and Morris, you're absolutely right. We are standing on the verge of what's called authoritarian breakthrough. Of the United States ceasing to be a democratic republic. I mean, we're already largely an oligarchy, but ceasing to be anything that even resembles a democratic republic and becoming an authoritarian state like Egypt or Turkey or Hungary or Russia. Russia appears to be Donald Trump's role model. I mean, I'm convinced that Vladimir Putin is not only Donald Trump's owner and friend, but also his role model.
Oh, no doubt about that. Let me let you go, Tom. I appreciate the conversation.
Okay. Good talking to you, Morris. Always good talking to you. Thank you so much. It's just about 20 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just about 60 seconds. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew both took cash bribes while they were in the White House. Since then, the Supreme Court, or at least 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court, made it a lot easier for politicians to take bribes with their Citizens United decision, which basically legalized political bribery as long as it's done through campaigns or PACs or super PACs. But for some people, there's just never enough money, right? Donald Trump has been running small-time hustles to make money for decades, selling sneakers, Bibles, steaks, vodka, water. But now he's hit the big time. He's got these fungible tokens, right? These fungible crypto assets, which are basically just digital pictures of Donald Trump that say, fight, fight, fight. And he has turned them into an $8 billion machine. His wife is in on this, too, with his Trump coin. It's a new way that foreign powers and billionaires in the United States can just shovel money into Donald Trump's pocket. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled Presidential Payola, the Evolution of Political Bribery. Check it out.
They gave it a nickname, like a roadside show, like a postcard stop where the families go. But there ain't no rides, just razor wire hems, and the lights don't turn off, they just stare through skin. They call it processing, call it keeping things clean. But I hear the hush where the truth should scream, and the words get softer, the crew gets loud. That's how our country forgets what it vowed. If you dress up a cage in a carnival grin, you can sell the sin like it's discipline. But God don't blink and the night don't lie. You can hear the prayer in a swallowed cry. There's a
Constitution in the swamp tonight.
drowning in the dark under floodlight white, and freedom's just a rumor behind chain link vows, while we pay for the silence and we call it law. If due process dies where the outsiders stand, it won't stay buried in that no man's land. 'Cause a cage is a cage when it's built in our name, and the devil loves paperwork signed without shame. Toilets overflow where the children sleep, water counted out like a bargain cheap. Bugs like witnesses swarm in the air, cameras on the bodies like nobody cares. And the showers ain't private, the doors ain't real, just a slow humiliation nobody heals. It wasn't a mistake, don't call it that. It was a choice made calm in a business hat. And every emergency builds a throne with no bid bricks and a dial tone. They cut off the lawyer, they cut off the light, and tell you don't worry, but they're building more tonight. There's a
Constitution in the swamp tonight.
drowning in the dark under floodlight white, and freedom's just a rumor behind chain link vows, while we pay for the silence and we call it law. If due process dies where the outsiders stand, it won't stay buried in that no man's land. 'Cause a cage is a cage when it's built in our name, and the devil loves paperwork signed without shame.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So Eileen Higgins is the mayor-elect down in Miami. This is a pretty big deal. She was a Peace Corps director in Belize. She served as a Foreign Service officer for the U.S. Department of State. Her platform focused on affordable housing, expanding public transit, and climate change. Which is interesting. I don't know to what extent she was criticizing what was going on at the Alligator, Alcatraz. Town Hall, this is funny. Town Hall, the right-wing website that William F. Buckley started way back in the day. The headline today, "We have one person to blame for losing Miami, Ron DeSantis." And they're blaming Ron DeSantis. I don't think so. I think, well, first of all, the Hispanic vote in Miami has, which was always heavily Republican, the Republicans have lost it. And I think it's because of Alligator, Alcatraz, because of the stuff that I was just talking about. Kamala Harris won Miami by 1 point last year. Eileen Higgins won it by 19 points yesterday. I mean, that's amazing, right? Emilio Gonzalez, who was her opponent, had been backed and openly endorsed by Donald Trump. He called it a great honor to back this guy. And, this in the village. And by the way, this is not just there. In the villages in Florida, this is Senate District 11. Republicans held the state Senate seat, but the spread shifted blue by 22 points. In House District 90, which includes Trump's home of Palm Beach, that district remained in Democratic hands, but it went bluer by around 18 points, writes Jay Quo over at statusquo.substack.com. In Georgia, a Democrat flipped, Eric Geisler, flipped a red House district seat blue. This is a heavily gerrymandered district around Athens. And by the way, that shows that gerrymandering doesn't always work. I have a feeling that Texas is going to discover that, and maybe some other states. They're diluting the really strong red districts in order to turn blue districts more red. And I think it's going to bite them in the butt. I really do. In Iowa, there was a state house contest nobody was paying attention to. Trump won it by 51 points last year. Well, it went down to a 40-point spread last night. So, you know, we had special elections around the country. Yesterday was Tuesday, and it really and truly does look like there's a blue wave is forming or has formed and is fixing, you know, in 12 months or 11 months to just wash over this country and to wash over the Republican Party and take them out of office. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, I think the strategy here is to suppress dissent, to stop people who are not American citizens from criticizing the Trump administration. But there may be some other agenda here. I'll share my thoughts and Nigel Peacock's newsletters, in fact, with you right after the break, and I'll pick up your calls.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So stick around. It's 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear, but before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option, with $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy of The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. A $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes two. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. This language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender nonconforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, the historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This is our moment. This is your moment and your movement. Stand with us. Stand with truth. Stand against the slide into authoritarianism. Call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org/donate. Let's make sure history echoes but does not repeat. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
It's Christmas, 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 Christmas. Santa grabbed his cocoa and he cleared his jolly throat. Said, I'm revising my criteria before I hit the road. It's not just naughty versus nice, those rules are getting old. Now fairness counts for bonus points and cookies made of gold. 'Cause Santa's on the side of justice, it's written in his sleigh. He gives out extra presents to the folks who give away. If you helped your friends or neighbors or shared your last hot pie, you're getting double stockings from the big red jolly guys. From the big red jolly guys.
Welcome back, 35 minutes past the hour. It is that season, right? All right, the New York Times' Christine Chung is reporting the headline, U.S. plans to scrutinize foreign tourists' social media history. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This change would affect visitors eligible for the Visa Waiver Program, which allows people from 42 countries to travel to the United States for up to 90 days without a visa if they first obtain this electronic travel authorization. And in a document filed yesterday with the Federal Register, the Customs and Border Patrol says it wants to ask for all kinds of stuff. Nigel Peacock, who lives in the UK, Nigel works with me on our newsletters, Hartmann Report, Thom.tv. He also helps coordinate a lot of our social media stuff and our YouTube stuff. Nigel and I have worked together for since the 80s. What is that? More than 40 years. And we used to run CompuServe forums together back in the day. So anyhow, Nigel, points out that he lives in the UK, and he's, although he travels to the United States frequently, most often to come over and visit us, I think, but he comes over for conferences and things. He says he's collected 32 different states. But he summarizes what they're asking for. He says, they want the social history going back 5 years, your social media history, which is wild. I mean, no other country is asking for this to the best of my knowledge. They want your personal phone numbers, any phone number that you've owned for the last 5 years. And he's like, what, my business numbers, my personal numbers, what? All your email addresses going back 10 years? Again, he asks, what use is that to U.S. immigration? By the way, this is from peacockreport.substack.com, which is a free newsletter. He says, I'll be required to provide details of my close family, including their names, address, date of birth, relationship, and probably more. That information is private to them, not public to U.S. immigration. And he talks about the effect on tourism, that a lot of people from wealthier countries, European countries in particular, are going to look at this and say, really, is this what I want to do? But Nigel's looking at this like, oh, they want to spy on us. And I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's a big piece of it. In fact, that's probably most of it. But I think it's also an attempt to suppress dissent. I think this is an attempt by the Trump administration to say to people who live in Europe, or any other country for that matter, but in particular in the countries that are affected by this, to say, if you want to come to the United States, don't criticize the United States. Or at least if you want to come to the United States, don't criticize Trump. I'm sure if your social media is trashing Joe Biden, you'll have no problem getting into the United States. So what's on your mind today? Paul in Zillow, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Good morning, Tom. I was listening to one of your callers the other day where the Republican Party should do something, they should do something. And I went, yeah, I'm sitting around doing nothing. So on Friday, I'm going to be hosting a picnic party on the corner in downtown Yakima in front of my Attorney General's office and my U.S. Representative's office from 11 to 1. And I'm going to be holding a sign that says, I am Antifa. Whoa. And if anybody happens to join me, I'm going to have another sign that says, we are Antifa.
That's very cool.
Because after reading that memo from about how, because I've organized events protesting our government, they're attempting to turn me into a criminal. I just thought I'd make it easier and show up at the Attorney General's office. And
that's impressive, Paul. If people who are not in... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to I'm going to contact his office and invite him to come down for a slice of pizza. So I'm going to encourage everybody everywhere. There's a lot of small actions going on all over the country on a regular basis. I know a number of people who are holding weekly events, and they're not getting a lot of attention.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to encourage anybody who lives in a city with an Attorney General's office to do the same thing.
I'm with you, Paul. And if people want to support you, do you want to plug your company, your business?
Well, thank you for inviting me to do that. Would you rather I
don't mention that? Which is why I'm being kind of oblique.
I'm as public as I can be, and if the federal government wants to come and take away,
let me tell everybody. Paul's got a little wine company, a winery in Washington State, and I've bought wine from you, and it's spectacular. It's just great. So what's the URL?
ParadisosDelSol.com.
Paradiso del Sol.
ParadisosDelSol.com.
There you go. Paul, good luck, and let us know how it works out, okay?
Yeah, feel free to give me a call on Friday about noon and see what's happening.
Yeah, or feel free to give us a shout. It's
that's a little harder to get through to you.
Yeah, well, as I think you figured out, if you call in the first 5 minutes that we're on the air, typically there's lines open. After that, it kind of tends to clog up. Although there is one line open right now, so But
so I
anyway.
am going to be on the street. I am going to be on the street from 11 to 1, and that's a tough time.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Well, have fun, Paul. Good talking to you. Susan in Waldport, Oregon. Hey, Susan, what's up?
Tom, thank you so much for having me. I live in Waldport, and I found out about what's going on in Waldport from a caller on your show yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I have checked into it more, and I want to call for big actions in a small town.
Now, I got an email from somebody yesterday saying that they had called the city, and the city said it's just a rumor. So what do you know?
Well, there is a, thank you. There's a city council meeting today at 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Show up early at 3:30 and come and speak against any ICE presence in our beautiful town of 2,000 people.
Yeah.
18 miles south of Newport, which they're also trying to put an ICE facility in.
Yep.
This hotel has been run down for decades.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been a shady place. I think it's owned by now LC right now. And everybody up and down the coast has denied ICE any kind of housing here, but this place supposedly has. Now, we will find out today at the city council meeting, and I'm just begging anyone on the Central Oregon coast who's against ICE and the attacks on our immigrant community, which is about 20% of the people here, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's desperate. Unbelievable. I've lived here for 3 decades. I worked at the Science Center in Newport, which was also attacked. You know, I mean, I cannot believe what I'm seeing from this government. We all need to stand up, and please come join us.
Yeah.
Anyone on the coast, anyone in the valley who can get to Wallport by 3:30 this afternoon.
Okay.
Please. People.
Okay.
Thank you,
Susan,
Tom.
thank you very much. Yeah, good luck. Linda in Long Island, New York. Hey, Linda, from the West Coast to the East Coast.
How are you?
What's on your mind?
Nothing much. Thank you for having me on your show.
My pleasure.
I just want to say I am one of your younger viewers. I am 21 years old, and I really like your show. And,
thank you.
You know, as a sociology major, I am starting to kind of open my eyes, and I am realizing, wow, like, this is tough. This is tough. Same thing. I gain a lot of knowledge from your show. So I was wondering, have you ever been a professor at a school?
No. My dad wanted to be a history professor, but he had to drop out of college when Mom got pregnant with me, but it kind of infected me with that. You know, it's
okay.
But I never finished college, so I never got to be a professor.
Okay, you know, that's good to know. But no, I just wanted to ask that, and just one thing. I know I might have to hurry up, but in Long Island, New York, there's the Long Island Railroad, and there's people that post all the time. Like, they post like Israel stuff, Trump stuff, like all of that. And I did that one time, trying to do a flyer for Palestine. I just put it on the wall, and a man came up to me, called me an extremist, and to take it down. And I felt humiliated. Like, I literally took it down.
Oh no!
So I just, you know.
So you're talking about at the railroad, what, at a railroad stop, you know, at a station?
Yeah, at a
There's like a wall or a poster board or a place where you can post things, or what?
Yeah, it is like posting things, and a lot of people do it personally, like religious-wise, Jehovah's Witness, and
Sure.
I just think it's funny seeing the double standards, and you see like people could post things, but if you don't like it, like, I don't think personally I'm an extremist, but yeah, I understand. Like, Republicans are odd, very different, but that's it.
I get
That's
it.
Thank you.
I get it. Well said, Linda, and you know, keep it up, and
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Keep your
You
posting
too.
going. Okay, nice to hear
Thank
from
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks for the call. It's 45 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's the Thom Hartmann program, defending America from the weapons of mass deception, and boy, are they out in force right now. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Exposing the con in conservative. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Let's see here, John in Los Angeles. Hey, John, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to KPFK.
Yeah, well, thank you for accepting my phone call so soon. Whipsawing like the weather back to the West Coast. The thing that caused me to want to call in was the Morris phone call. These are, kind of perilous times. The momentum of the blue wave, as you say, or I call it the progressive wave, that's developed in this country. It's not necessarily blue because there are a lot of red people who consider themselves progressive also, but just in a different way, But anyway, they're people too, just like me and you. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that we have the momentum of progress right now, and Trump knows it, and his minions know it. That's why they're suppressing dissent to try to quell the wave before it rinses out their swamp.
Agreed.
But we cannot back off, regardless of what kind of threats they make on us, for several reasons. Number one, we preoccupy them with trying to put out fires on all the street corners. Number two, we set an example for other people who haven't made up their mind. Number three, we will not allow them by tacitly giving approval to what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm with you. John, well said. Thank you very much for that. Roger in Seattle. Hey, Roger, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for coming to Seattle. I was sitting on the Republican side, so I didn't get a chance to raise my hand and talk to you or spend $100 before the meeting to talk to you with all the other well-heeled donors. But
it was a fundraiser for our radio station,
Pardon?
It was a fundraiser for our radio station, so.
Well, that's why I bought the ticket before I saw the $100 thing. So I figured, I'll just get them to bring Tom back when I click on the ticket button slower.
Okay.
But one of the things, did you know the folk singer, well-known folk singer in Seattle before you came?
I knew of him. I didn't know him. I think that's the first time I met him. I may be wrong. He may have played for a previous, because I've been there a few times, but I believe that's the first time I met him. He was really good.
Yes, he is.
Good guy. He gave me a CD of his music when I left.
Plays all of the folk singing opportunities, the May Day, Memorial Day, and which is the free one, and then the one on Labor Day, even though it's blue, you have to pay to get into the Seattle Center. But all the other ones in Yakima and near Zilla. By the way, as a free plug for that wine, he should go to the Church of God, because if you go over there, his hometown, do you remember what his hometown is?
Zilla, Washington.
And if you go to the Church of God, they have a comma in between the name and the town. So what happens if you take out the town? It's the Church of Godzilla. So all the tourists go there. So you got to next time you come to Seattle, go to Eastern Washington to the winery and then get a
there you go, go over
selfie.
to Paradiso del Sol. Okay, Roger, thanks a lot. Nice to hear from you. I'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. We've all gotten so used to living in a country where people are trying to crowdfund, like, cancer research for children. St. Jude's is a wonderful charity, but we're the only developed country in the world that needs, where you have to go to people and beg for money in order to treat children with cancer. Or Shriners, another great charity, but shouldn't we all be funding children who are born with birth defects and problems like that? We're probably the only country in the world where you can sell your life insurance policy because Social Security doesn't cover your retirement. It's probably not happening anywhere else in the world. Or reverse mortgage your home because you can't afford it. This is crazy. that we are living in a country where no kid hungry, a charity. You can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed I wrote about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled America's Sickest Reality Show, Crowdfunding Cancer Care While Billionaires Hoard Billions. Check it out.
The grip tightens. Can you feel the change? They're tightening their hold, pushing us to the edge of rage. Every law they break, every truth they steal, we stand on the edge, and it's too real. The grip tightens, it's cutting through the night. Can we rise, or will we lose this fight? They silence our voices, crush our dreams. The grip tightens, ripping at the seams. The grip tightens, can you hear the call?
Yeah, but we're pushing back. We are really pushing back. 52 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Yeah, we will fight back. Thank you. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah, sort of.
Oh.
Pretty much.
All right. This decision by the Supreme Court to take up what we call birthright citizenship is really way off. And I can only think that they have an intention, because
yeah, no, they're working on this. Paul, if you can get your mouth closer to the microphone on your phone, it'll make it a lot easier for everybody to hear what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Because the first thing is there's why they take the case.
The Supreme Court. Yes.
There's no disagreement between the lower courts. The lower courts have all ruled that Donald Trump's executive order is unconstitutional, and so what do they want to do with this? There are really only, when you say birthright citizenship, that's kind of an incomplete misnomer, because there are two types of birthright, and one is what we have, or what we consider the 14th Amendment to indicate, which is called citizenship by right of soil, which is called jus soli, and the other one would be called citizenship by right of blood, or jus sanguinis. There's only two choices.
Mm-hmm.
So if the 14th Amendment clearly describes jus soli, birthright by soil, if you're born in the jurisdiction of the United States or naturalized thereof. So when they talk about we don't want any, the right wing says we don't want any illegals dropping anchor babies here. Well, jus sanguinis, or citizenship by right of blood, people wouldn't necessarily be citizens if they were born to legal immigrants.
Right.
Trump's
his oldest three children, Don, Eric, and Ivanka, were all born of Ivana when she was still a green card holder. She was not yet a citizen. So.
Well, yeah, and what I'm thinking is, because they say that, this was intended just to appear for black slaves.
Well, that's their argument.
Have helped. Yeah, well, it wouldn't have helped them, because remember, slaves were not citizens either.
Their parents were not citizens. You're right. Yeah, I don't think that it makes any sense. I'm with you, Paul. Clearly, the Supreme Court would not have taken this up if they didn't intend to overturn the conventional understanding of the 14th Amendment. And I think that that's coming down the road. And the reason is very simple. You got a bunch of white people on that court who are sick and tired of brown people and black people acquiring citizenship in the United States. And they share Donald Trump's view, which was articulated in this national security strategy of the United States just this week, that civilization in white countries, the United States and Europe, is under attack by black and brown people, by foreign ideologies and religions and obviously race. I mean, it's just this is just pure racism.
The other problem with the case is who are the adversarial litigants? I'm not aware that there is another party arguing against Trump. In other words, normally it would be someone who he's saying, or the administration is saying, is not a citizen because they were born from someone who's illegal.
In other words, there's no injury here. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, and it's an ex parte case about a constitutional amendment. It's just Trump arguing that this is the way it should be on an executive order. I mean, this is really dangerous about how to change amendments, amend the Constitution by executive order, and the court seems prepared to do that.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I predict they will do that.
Yeah, I do too.
And the rationale that they're going to use and that you're going to hear all across right-wing media is, oh, America's just doing what Canada does, what Mexico does, what most other countries do.
That's wrong, because all Western countries, 35 Western countries, including Canada, has the same right of soil, just solely, is Old English common law.
No, I know that. But I'm telling you, that's what, a lot of countries don't, and that's going to be their argument. And, I get it. Paul, thank you. Well said, and always appreciate your insights into the legal nuances, what's going on out here. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Sonia Sotomayor takes on the court. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Corporate.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear, but before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option, with $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy of The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. A $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes $2. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. This language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender non-conforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, the historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This is our moment. This is your moment and your movement. Stand with us. Stand with truth. Stand against the slide into authoritarianism. Call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org/donate. Let's make sure history echoes, but does not repeat.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome back to the second hour of our program. Sonia Sotomayor silences the chamber. I mentioned this yesterday, but it's worth coming back to. In the Trump v. Slaughter case, this is where Donald Trump is trying to assert his right to basically fire anybody in any federal agency. Slaughter was a Democratic appointee to the Federal Trade Commission, and was speaking out against basically monopolies. And Sonia Sotomayor says, says this to John Sauer, who was Trump's former criminal defense lawyer and now is our Solicitor General, the person who argues on behalf of the government before the Supreme Court. She said, "You're asking us to destroy the structure of government and to take away from Congress its ability to protect its ideas that the government is better structured with some agencies that are independent." Now, Sauer's argument and the argument of the administration is that there's no place for independent agencies in the Constitution. That the Constitution says you've got Congress, you've got the executive branch, the president, and you've got the Supreme Court, and those are the three categories, basically. And there's no fourth category for independent agencies. But Congress created that fourth category, and Congress creates these agencies, and Congress defines the rules by which they operate. And Congress, years and years ago, said when it created the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Reserve and multiple other organizations, that these institutions, these organizations are independent of, largely independent of the executive branch. The executive branch appoints people to work in them or to lead them, but that's it. Beyond that, they kind of run on their own based on what Congress says. And if Congress doesn't like the way they're operating, Congress gets to change them, not the president. In other words, these branches, these organizations, these institutions are the children of Congress, not the children of the executive branch. It's an imperfect metaphor, but I lack a better one. In fact, Sonia Sotomayor said, Justice Sotomayor said, what you're saying is the president can do more than the law permits. She said that to John Sauer, and at that moment, the entire court just went silent. Because the law does not permit what Trump wants to do. But what Trump is saying is that he's above the law, that the presidency is above whatever Congress says because, hey, unitary executive and let's make Donald Trump immune from everything and let's give him absolute pardon power and let's make him king. And no problem if he makes himself $10 billion in the first 11 months of being the president. John Sowers instead says Humphrey must be overruled. It's become a decaying husk. Humphrey, of course, was the decision in 1935 when Franklin Roosevelt wanted to fire somebody on the Federal Trade Commission, and Congress said, no, you can't do it. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do it. So, here we are. And it's a minor train wreck, frankly. So keep an eye on this decision. It's fairly clear, I think, from the arguments that that the conservatives on the Supreme Court are going to give this power to Donald Trump to fire people in independent agencies. Now, they may try to carve out an exception for the Fed. I mentioned that yesterday, and I think they probably will because they realize, if you politicize, see, the whole goal that Congress was trying to establish is let's create agencies that do things that are like critical to the normal functioning of our economy and our democracy. The Federal Trade Commission, having to do with, the size of corporations, for example. And corporate power is a real threat to democracy. And it's also a threat to average citizens. So the Federal Trade Commission should be independent of political influence. People with lots of money shouldn't be able to buy a politician and have the politician simply change how the FTC works. But, it appears that these conservatives on the Supreme Court are going to try and have it both ways. They're going to try to say, well, yeah, that's all good with the Fed, the Federal Reserve Board, because the Fed, if the Fed makes a politicized decision, if the Fed decides, if Trump, puts his people in the Fed and the Fed then decides to, lower interest rates just before the election to goose the economy so that people will vote for Trump or Republicans, that could actually have a really terrible impact on the country. Whereas if the Federal Trade Commission just allows, another 2 airlines to merge into one giant airline, that's not going to affect things, at least in as big a sense. I think it's just a BS argument. Meanwhile, this bombshell report coming out of Europe, published in the Financial Times yesterday, Russia was planning massive terrorist attacks on Europe and the U.S. last year, and they tried to carry out several of these. I mean, this is from the BBC last year. Quote, a series of parcel fires targeting courier companies in Poland, Germany, and the UK were dry runs aimed at sabotaging flights to the U.S. and Canada, according to Polish prosecutors. Western security officials have now told U.S. media, again, this is BBC, have now told U.S. media they believe the fires, which happened in July, were part of an orchestrated campaign by Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU. It's suspected to have been behind other attacks on warehouses and railway networks in EU member states this year, including in Sweden and the Czech Republic. One of the things they point out is that the GRU, the Russian Intelligence Service, is not using Russian spies and like smuggling them into these countries to plant these bombs that were supposed to blow up airliners and things and trains. They're actually hiring mercenaries. They're using social media to find people who are inclined to support Russia or are simply willing to do anything in exchange for enough money. Olga Lautman writes about this. She says, last week's release of Trump's national security strategy made one thing brutally clear, and that is that the United States is no longer fully shaping its own foreign policy. The document reads like parts of it were written in Moscow, flipping 75 years of American policy on its head. So not only is Russia attacking the United States and Europe, and I'll get to more detail on that in just a second, but also Trump is joining them. This is a quote from Russia, from Jared Kushner, for example. Quote, I hope that Ukraine will accept our peace plan and this terrible war will end, or let them continue to fight, but without our weapons, money, and intelligence support, we'll see how long they last. Let's let that sink in. So this is Trump and Junior, Cokehead Jr., spreading vicious lies about Ukraine. But here's the piece. This is from the Financial Times. This is a piece by Janet Chausinski and Sam Jones. It's titled, Russia's Hybrid Warfare Puts Europe to the Test. And it points out, in July 2024, DHL parcels exploded in logistics centers in the UK, Poland, and Germany, each of them powerful enough to have brought down a cargo plane had they detonated. Security services would eventually trace the plot back to a group of Russian-directed saboteurs who had a further 6 kilograms of explosive material in their possession. The Financial Times is able to determine that the goal of this was, quote, to attack flights to the U.S. and cause more disruption to the airline industry than any act of terror since the World Trade Center attacks. It was just one near-miss incident in a coordinated and covert campaign of sabotage led by Moscow, officials believe, that has sown bewilderment across the continent and is steadily posing more of a risk to human lives. Intelligence chiefs and police forces have foiled plots to derail crowded trains, burn down shopping centers, discharge a dam, and poison water supplies. And the Financial Times notes, these are just the ones we know about. So, they're pointing out, some of these frontline states like Poland and Ukraine and Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they're seriously fearing Russian-sponsored terrorism. And they say that, and this is the money, this is just, Russia was gearing its military and economy for a possible hot war with Europe by 2029. Now, if Trump remains president and Russia starts a war with Europe and we decide not to intervene, that could be it for Europe. I mean, this is just wild stuff.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And why is Donald Trump all in with Putin? Why does he hate democracy and hate Europe? I don't get it. What say you? Paul in Seattle. Hey, Paul, thanks for listening to KBCS. What's up?
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking my call. I'm a long time, first time.
Thank you.
I love the show.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to call in support of Paul in Yakima, over on the other side of my state, and he is going to be protesting with an I Am Antifa sign, and I just got a quick notion that I wanted to throw out to the ethos. It's if you ain't Antifa, you profa. And that's all I got for you, Tom.
I love it. Well said, Paul. Thank you very much. That's
all
a
right,
good one.
thank you.
Yeah, look forward to your next
All right,
call.
have a good
Thanks. Joe in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Firstly, I have a solution for the standoff with Venezuela, and that's for both dictators of both countries to step down.
Trump and Maduro?
Yeah, Trump and they both
there's
step down.
no doubt that Maduro is not a legitimate president of Venezuela. You know, he lost the election and hung on to power anyway, and that's nobody's pretending otherwise. And that's why the Nobel Committee gave the prize to I'm forgetting her name, but the woman who was unable to make it to the meeting this week. But that does not mean that we should intervene militarily. I mean, that's crazy.
No, of course not. But the other thing I was going to say is, there's some really strong connections between Larry Ellison and Epstein. A lot of people don't ever talk about that connection. But here's one I was wondering if you're familiar with. Have you heard of the guy named Jean-Luc Brunel?
That sounds familiar. Was he the modeling agency guy?
Yes, he was the modeling agency guy that, per the emails, sent Epstein some 12-year-old triplets as a birthday present, right?
Whoa.
Now, here's the thing that's really interesting. Do you know who financed the startup for Brunel's modeling agency?
No.
He went to jail for being a pedo as well, and he also died in prison mysteriously. But the person who funded the startup of his modeling agency, Steve Mnuchin.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, This is weird.
Yeah, the web. Yeah. And, of course, Mnuchin got about what Jared Kushner did. He got about $2.5 billion.
Oh, I thought he just got $1 billion from the Saudis. Now, was this at the same time that Trump was running a modeling agency for young girls?
Yeah, definitely in that same time period. But
I think
thought
that's
really
the stuff that Trump is afraid will come out if the Epstein files are released.
That's right. But the new numbers on the investments into Mnuchin's equity fund and by the way, Jared Kushner just made it on the billionaires list in America. We have like 924 of them.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
Wow.
Now, but yes, Steve Mnuchin got about from UAE, Qatar, and Saudis. He's now gotten into his equity company, $2.5 billion.
Wow.
So, I just thought, I was wondering who financed that guy's modeling agency that he had this much clout, and it was Mnuchin. So, this web, this is part of the reason why this stuff can't come out in full, is because it's going to interlink some of these rats.
Well, as Trump said, this is what Trump said to Marjorie Taylor Greene. He said, if these files come out, it's going to hurt some people. Well, apparently now we know who. Joe, thanks for the information. Great to hear from you. I appreciate it. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. They wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these weird, they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, you know, their ultimate talking document does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, you know, just they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out.
They say we're hiding in basements, plotting the nation's fall. But the scariest thing we're scheming is healthcare that covers us all. Oh, the last radical lefty, he's dangerous, can't you see? He's armed with a clipboard and compost and a plan to save Social Security. They call us violent anarchists, but our weapons don't really harm. A tote bag of fair trade latte and kale from the co-op farm. So if democracy trembles and the right says we're all to blame, remember the terror they're warning about. Can't even spell your name. Yes, the last radical lefty, a menace you must confess. He'll terrify Wall Street billionaires with his vote for higher tax rates, I guess.
23 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So Trump sends shockwaves through Latin America as he says 2 more nations. This is crazy. This was an interview taped this week with Politico, and he said he was considering military strikes, or he wouldn't rule out military strikes against Mexico and Colombia, as well as Venezuela. This is the guy who just pardoned the president of Honduras, who imported 500 tons of cocaine into the United States. Apparently, Roger Stone was the guy behind this pardon. Trump, when he was asked about it, he said, they asked me to do it. I said, okay, I'll do it. And apparently the key link from Hernandez to Trump was Roger Stone. And which raises the question, how much did Hernandez pay Roger Stone for this? Or how much did Roger Stone pay Trump? Or what does Trump owe Roger? You know, what's the deal here? Meanwhile, FA-18 Super Hornets were just tracked flying deep inside the Gulf of Venezuela. We are now trying to provoke Venezuela into a military confrontation. Good news, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois just signed into law yesterday a new Illinois state law that restricts immigration enforcement outside state courthouses and makes it easier for people to sue immigration agents if you believe that your rights have been violated. It also limits the information that hospitals, daycare centers, and colleges in Illinois can give to the immigration agents. The Republicans, of course, in Illinois and the Trump administration are criticizing the measure, as Mitch Smith writes for the New York Times, criticizing the measure. And my guess is it'll be challenged in court. California and New York also have laws restricting civil immigration arrests at courthouses. Now, why do we need these laws? Because here's what's going on. You come to the United States legally. You know, you apply, you get permission to come, to have a visa, to have a visitor's visa, a student visa, a permanent resident status. You marry an American citizen, whatever it may be. You get here, you got a green card or you've got a visa, and you're applying for citizenship. And so what do you have to do? Every 6 months, you have to show up, or periodically, I guess it depends on your status and where you are in that hierarchy. You have to show up at a courthouse or at one of these facilities and renew your basically license to be here. And so what ICE is doing is they're going into these courthouses And when people go in to get their visas renewed or their green cards renewed or whatever it may be, the ICE agents are grabbing them, even if they're here legally. In fact, a large percentage, according to some reporting, of the people that ICE has detained are, had legal status right up until the moment that ICE, seized them and challenged their legal status, or it was revoked. So this is why you've got 3 states now that are saying you can't go into our courthouses anymore, because we want people to be able to go through that process toward citizenship. And of course, Trump doesn't want that because, from 1924 to 1965, immigration into the United States, legal immigration into the United States, was limited basically to white people. The immigrant population had to reflect the demographic, the racial composition of the United States. Since 1965, there's no racial filter. And so there's been a lot of black and brown people coming into this country, and that's what's got the Republicans, the Nick Fuentes branch of the GOP, just all bent out of shape. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So what's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls right after this. Stay with us. We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear. But before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option. With $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy of The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. A $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes 2. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. This language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender nonconforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, the historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines. because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This is our moment. This is your moment and your movement. Stand with us. Stand with truth. Stand against the slide into authoritarianism. Call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org/donate. Let's make sure history echoes but does not repeat. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. It's no coincidence that the time in Europe when the church ran the continent, from around the 5th century to around the 15th or 16th century, that 1,000-year period is referred to as the Dark Ages. This is what happens when religion controls politics, when religion controls the state, the nation. And every nation in Europe was controlled essentially by the Catholic Church during that period of time. It got busted up with the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. This was what the founders of this country very much knew about. George Washington refused to declare himself a Christian. Thomas Paine wrote an entire book embracing atheism. Ben Franklin fled Massachusetts as a teenager to escape the religious threats. And Thomas Jefferson went off on it regularly. There's a whole piece about how the Republicans are trying to impose a new dark age on America. It's all laid out, all the quotes and all the links over at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
You're a mean one, Mr. Trump. You govern with disdain. You stacked the court with chaos and left us all in pain, Mr. Trump. You've got a heart that's smaller than a microscopic grain. You're a cruel one, Mr. Trump. You separated kids. You built a wall of malice where humanity forbids, Mr. Trump. You deport a puppy just for chewing on your lids. You're a bigot, Mr. Trump. A xenophobic mess. From From Muslim bands to Charlottesville, you double down, no less. Mr. Trump.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Dan in Naperville, Illinois. Hey, Dan, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. You do a fantastic job of educating the public, and thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I wanted to discuss just quickly this new requirement that they're going to have a foreign tourist to provide their social media histories from the last 5 years.
Yep.
You know, the U.S. tourism business is already expecting a $12.5 billion loss this year due to all the tariffs and base issues and everything that they've got.
Yep.
This obviously is only going to further that. But, you know, the things that they haven't really taken into they don't take anything into consideration. But you have conventions in this country, a lot of medical conventions, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What about the folks that are coming in from other countries that happen to have different views of medical than our, Bobby Kennedy status or, his ideas? What happens with them? Are they going to be allowed to come into conventions? And across the country, I had the good fortune to work with convention visitor bureaus in about 120 cities. These people are all taking major hits right now. And, whether it's sports or conventions, it's going to be huge losses. What do you think they can possibly be thinking about that?
I don't think they care. I don't think that these are minor industries in the minds of the Trump administration. They're concerned about the fossil fuel industry, not the travel industry. And I subscribe to Nature magazine, and I get a daily newsletter from them. And it's been a few months, maybe 3-4 months ago, they did a whole little article on how scientific groups, Nature encompasses basically the entire spectrum of science, not just health, and how scientific groups that have historically met in the United States are now moving their annual meetings or however frequently they meet to European countries or other places. Places like Mexico even, resorts to avoid the United States. And in part, it's because they're concerned that some of their attendees may not actually even be able to attend because we've got restrictions on so many countries. But beyond that, it's also because their attendees are loudly objecting to doing anything that appears to be supportive of the United States because Trump is our president. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, Dan.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the response. Appreciate it.
Good talking to you.
Keep doing your good work, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the kind words. Casey in West Palm Beach, Florida. Hey, Casey, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Good to hear from you. I just want to give you an update. Unfortunately, I'm down in South Florida, and I work at a hotel. Tourism is definitely down. Canadians are completely boycotting the U.S., and when they look at global reservations, from South America and stuff like that, even your staycations, it's down at least 25%, right? I really wanted to talk about the election, which is great, but the thing is, let me explain to you. There is a right wing, like a Rush Limbaugh version. It's in Latin, and it's mostly a Cuban station down in Miami. And Trump tapped into that in both elections, just to let you know.
There's a chain of them, Casey. There's about 300 right-wing Spanish language stations across the United States right now.
Right. The older Cubans, the exiles, who they're mad at their Democrats since the Bay of Pigs, so they always wanted to thumb their nose. But most of the older exiles have died off. The younger Cubans mostly vote Democrat, except in the last election with Trump. Like I said, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, and the Puerto Ricans voted for Trump. That was the big push basically in Florida, why he was basically, because Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County normally are blue. And when you go north of Palm Beach County and the Sticks and, the Yahoo, it's all the Jethros that live out there, it's all red. But basically, Trump swept.
Was that because of Trump's rhetoric against Maduro?
The Venezuelans, because I lived in Trinidad too. Okay, so I speak to friends in Trinidad. Is a lot of Venezuelans have basically left, and they're going to Trinidad, they're going to Tobago, they're going to other countries. All right. Now there's good and bad Venezuelans. There's hardworking Venezuelans, and there's ones that just, obviously the ones that are not good Venezuelans.
Sure. Just like any nation.
So the crime the crime went up in Trinidad because of, in the last 10 years, because of Maduro. So a lot of them, like I said, went to Trinidad. Were, like I said, in South Florida, the Venezuelans, this whole thing about socialism, the right wing targeted it and made the Democratic Party this poster boy for transgenders. We had to have, which was there's about 3,000 transgenders in this country. It's a needle in a haystack.
Yep.
They made a nothing burger. They made it a focal point.
Oh, that was the focus. That was the focus of the entire Trump campaign. That ad where back 20 years ago, Kamala Harris had said something about supporting trans surgeries, and they ran that clip, and then they said, Donald Trump wants to lower your costs, and Kamala Harris wants to, fix trans people, or change your kids at school or whatever. And that was the focus and the foundation and the central pivot point of the entire Trump campaign in 2024.
But the problem is, though, because let me say, there's still now. The Democrats gave up on Florida. They've gave up now. All of a sudden, I'm hearing they're seeing a little light, a little flicker of light there. But you still have Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is hated. She's still showing her face, and there's love for Nikki Fried, and there's hate for Nikki Fried. Let me explain to you. She's not this. I like her and I don't like her, right? But there's still division in Florida when it comes to the Democratic Party. Sure. And it's like they still have like the old baton of corporate Democrats are still they won't turn over the baton to.
Yeah, this is a problem all over the country. You've got the old Clinton wing, basically, the corporate Democrats.
But why is Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Why is she still showing her face? Why doesn't she just retire? I don't understand why the Democrats don't.
Well, she still has a seat in Congress, doesn't she?
Well, she's still showing her face on TV. She's still in these interviews. It's like she's one of the reasons why we lost the youth vote when she.
I totally get it, Casey. I totally get it. And I think you could call it the Larry Summers wing of the Democratic Party, even. But I guess the answer to the question, Casey, would be because people like you, who really want the Democratic Party to be more progressive and go back to its FDR, LBJ roots, are not showing up at the Democratic Party meetings and are not taking over the local Democratic Party groups. Because if the majority of the county level or city level Democratic clubs or Democratic Party groups were taken over by people who wanted progressives in power, you would have nothing but progressives in power. So I guess let me flip it around and ask, what are you doing about it, Casey?
Well, I went to a Palm Beach County, the local Palm Beach County Democrat, right after Trump lost. Okay, They had a meeting. They were swearing in, blah, blah, blah. My friend was running for some sort of seat there or chair, whatever. I don't know. It was a low Palm Beach County seat or whatever it was.
Sure.
And let me explain to you. The majority were older, Jewish, white people. There was 3 black women. I'm sorry, there was no representation from the black community, and black women are the heartbeat of the Democratic Party.
Well, a lot's going to depend on where you are. I mean, the demographics of those.
Palm Beach County.
Right. So you've got a lot of older, retired people from New York, and an awful lot of Jews there too. I'm assuming that you're not saying this as some kind of anti-Semitic slur, but just noting the demographics.
No, but the thing is, though, it seems like the Jewish community here wants to run the show. They're not.
Well, if they're the majority, they should. I just don't know. I just don't know. But Casey, this should not be about Jewish or not Jewish. This should be about progressive or not progressive. There's a lot of progressive Jews out there, and again, I would tell you, if you don't like the way the Democratic Party is being run, become one of the people who runs it. It's not that difficult. You just, you don't just show up at the meeting and sit in the back of the room and criticize them. You become part of it. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where smart people get their news. We'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Judy in Denver. Hey, Judy, what's up?
Hi, welcome to the United Fascist States of America, the only country in the world that allows its president and members of the legislature, Republicans, to commit treason and keep their positions. Run by the Republican Trump death party. Now, I would like to hear what Democrats are doing. I do not have the internet. I have to go to the library, which a lot of times is very hard for me to get to. And then I do research. And I have gone to Democrats' websites and have been disappointed. My county Democratic Party has its meetings virtually, at night, so I cannot participate. Our library is only open till 5. Mm-hmm. So I would like to know, when Republican things are brought up, I would like to hear what Democrats are doing. Because frankly, when they've been interviewed on TV, it's pretty much small interviews, small questions, and Democrats don't
So let me
say
get
much
this
of
right.
any.
Judy, you're in Denver, and the Democratic Party in Denver is holding virtual meetings instead of physical meetings?
Actually, I live outside of Denver.
Okay.
I live in the Denver metropolitan area.
I see.
And the county is a huge county. Mm-hmm. And when they were meeting, actually got people together, I went to those meetings. Mm-hmm. But even now, I can't even find out. Well, they're not meeting at all other than virtually.
I think a lot of that has changed. I mean, that certainly was the case in the during the COVID year 2020 and during the first year or two after that.
Not here. Not here. Not in the county I belong to. Yeah. It hasn't.
Well, maybe.
And I can understand it being such a huge county.
Right. If it's a very rural area, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is. And it's a pretty red area too. Mm. So, but I would like to hear more about what Democrats are doing. I call legislators almost daily, and leave suggestions, leave my opinion, and I know without a doubt that nothing is being passed on. But
they do tally the calls. They won't pass along your detailed comments, generally speaking, but what they do is they have a list of topics or subjects or proposed legislation or whatever, and how many people called to say yes or how many people called to say no, or what's on people's minds. I mean, they do tally that stuff up and pass it along. It's not like you're being ignored when you call. Although there are some people who literally call every day and they do get ignored because they're calling every day. I mean, if you call more than once a week, you start hurting yourself. You start defeating your own purpose because then they don't take you seriously.
Right. That's why. But I want to hear what Democrats are doing.
Yeah. Well, you might ask them. Judy, I don't have an easy answer for you. I don't know your area, but somebody out there has to know. Judy, thank you for the call. It's 10 minutes before the hour. 50 minutes past. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. People in the Rust Belt states know all about tariffs. They know that tariffs kept jobs in the Rust Belt states for centuries, literally, that America was built on tariffs. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump got elected in 2016 was because he talked about tariffs. But for some reason right now, the Harris-Walz campaign, or Democrats in general, are reluctant to talk about tariffs. They call them sales taxes or something like that. They really need to be a little more straightforward because people, particularly in the industrial Midwest, or in the Rust Belt, as we call it now, are not dumb. you know, they know what's going on. They know where we've been and how we got here. And I think it's pretty important to be talking about tariffs and what they are, how they work, and how they can bring manufacturing back home. I wrote a piece about it for Hartmann Report. It's titled, Why Trump is Wrong and Alexander Hamilton Was Right About Tariffs. And I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
Who are they protecting? Although poor, be small, be good. But we remember what they did in the dark. And we're not quiet anymore. They hide their sins in marble halls. They wear their crimes in suits and smiles. We were 14, they were kings. Now we're here to burn their lies. Who are they protecting when they silence our names? Who are they protecting while they hide their shame? The truth is a wound that's still bleeding, and we're done with the pain. Tell us, who are they protecting when they all know the names? They took our youth and called
So Trump says that, well, you know, if you release the Epstein files, people are going to get hurt. Yeah. By the way, Trump also said that just yesterday he gave Ukraine, he's got this peace plan that was written in Moscow that gives a large chunk of Ukraine to Putin in exchange for all the violence that Putin has visited upon Ukraine. And Trump told Zelensky that he's got until Christmas to sign this thing, or we're just going to go away. We are now siding with Russia, and Europe is looking at us saying, holy crap, that's it. And in fact, one of the top stories in the Financial Times today is about how Europe is trying to get around Viktor Orban in Hungary, because you have to have unanimous consent in the European Union to pretty much do anything. And Orban is blocking European aid to Ukraine on behalf of Putin. Orban, Putin, and Trump have formed this, like, you know, collective of right-wing dictator and dictator wannabe ships, as it were. And so, you know, keep an eye on this. Probably this week, the EU is going to figure out a way around Viktor Orban, around Hungary, and you know, start explicitly, aggressively defending Ukraine. And I have a feeling we're on the verge of some very substantial change, and I'm looking forward to my conversation with Phil tomorrow, Phil Ittner, about these issues. Tommy in Oxford, Alabama. Hey, Tommy, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I don't hear any of this in the current news media, and it's about the invasion of Venezuela. Me and my cohort, and we're veterans advocates, have been talking about Venezuelan oil. And do you think, I'm interested in your opinion, do you think that they are trying to invade Venezuela over the oil reserves that's there?
As the old saying goes, is a frog's ass watertight? Yes.
Yeah, we're both Michigan guys, so I get that.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
So the issue I wanted to bring up was Colonel Glade attacking veterans benefits in the Project 2025. They're trying to reduce veterans benefits. Mm-hmm. My cohort has issued a big, she did a lot of research and put it on Substack, and she's co-authored with another person about his testimony in the Wall Street Journal articles. Have you heard or seen anything about that?
I've not. I mean, I know that there's a lot of veterans who are very upset with the damage that Trump has done to the Veterans Administration, Republicans, you know, defunding programs.
This just to give you a little idea, anybody under 60% are going to do away with all compensation, and there's a whole list of things. Where can I send you stuff at? Can I do it on Substack? Is that the best?
Yeah,
place?
Probably the best way to reach me is to DM me on Substack. When I was in Seattle last weekend, there was a physician who was there, who was a physician with the VA. And he came to this, they had a little fundraiser, before the event, and kind of a reception. And we had a conversation, and boy, some of the stories, I mean, you're absolutely right, Tommy. The veterans in America, are under assault by, basically what it is you've got the billionaires who own the Republican Party don't want to pay their damn taxes. And they see some of their tax money going to veterans, and they're like, why are we bothering to do that? We should be getting more tax cuts for billionaires. And I don't know of any billionaires. There's probably some who are veterans, but it seems, most of these people started out very well off in life and never felt the urge to serve their countries. So.
Well, the most recent thing is they're attacking veterans alone.
Yeah, Tommy, you're breaking up now. I'm sorry, but we're hitting the top of the hour, so I got to run. But thank you for the call. Up next, Donald Goldmacher. There's a new movie out, or it's a brand new version of a movie. It's Heist, and Donald will tell you all about that right after the break, and then a little bit of news, and I'll pick up your calls. We'll be right
back. You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Is corporate.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear, but before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option, with $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy, The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. A $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes $2. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, Anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. This language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender non-conforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, the historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This is our moment. This is your moment and your movement. Stand with us. Stand with truth. Stand against the slide into authoritarianism. Call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org/donate. Let's make sure history echoes, but does not repeat.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of our program. On the line with us is Donald Goldmacher. He's the producer of a movie called Heist, or Heist the Movie 2025. The website is actually heist-themovie2025.com. And Donald, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we've talked here on the air. But tell us about the original incarnation of this movie and about its reincarnation.
Yes. Well, the original incarnation of the movie was when my producing partner, Frances, gave me a call out of the blue, said she was making a film about undocumented workers crossing the border into Arizona and how ICE was interfering with them. And she was trying to make a film about that. And she wanted to see if I would be interested. And we got into a deeper conversation. I said, well, one of the goals of allowing undocumented workers into this country is cheap labor. They undercut ordinary union standards. They take over jobs, or they did take over jobs that were formerly union jobs, like in meatpacking industries, construction, et cetera. So then we got into a bigger conversation about, well, let's make a movie about class warfare, which then led to a bigger movie about class warfare and deregulation and the goal of corporations to hijack American democracy. And we pulled that movie off. In fact, we were filming the week that Wall Street collapsed in September 2008 because we had anticipated was going to happen. And ironically, or serendipitously, we wound up on Wall Street on the day it happened, September 15, 2008. Huh. And so the interviews were really very powerful with the folks that have been, including, the likes of Senator Bernie Sanders, former CEO of American Airlines, et cetera. And we focused in on what was then a pretty unknown memo and still appears to be pretty unknown. It's called the Powell Memo, written by a former tobacco industry lawyer.
Lewis
who
Powell.
was appointed by Richard Nixon 2 months later to the Supreme Court.
Yep, in 72.
71.
Oh, I thought his appointment was in 72.
No. The appointment was like in October 1971. Okay. The memo was written in August for the Chamber of Commerce. Uh-huh. And we lay out in the movie the gory details of what he was after. I mean, he basically was a strategist for a corporate counter-revolution against what was happening in the 60s.
And a lot of those guys actually thought they were saving America. I mean, they what was going on in the 60s they thought was the disintegration of this country. I saw it as the birthing of a new country. But so the movie came out, and I narrated the first version. Am I remembering correctly? Yeah, okay. And the movie came out and did well, and now we're, what, a decade and a half
We're 17 years later from the initial interviews that we did in 2008.
Right.
Okay. And so when Trump was reelected last November, several people came to me and said, you have to re-release the movie. You have to get the movie out there again, because this movie really explains how it's possible for Donald Trump to be elected in this country. Mm-hmm. What the backstory is, as we say in the film biz, right? Yeah. The backstory. And we give 50 years of backstory explaining all of the elements that needed to be in place for this corporate coup, which is now in full bloom. I mean, if anybody has any questions now, then they really haven't been paying attention very much. But they're paying attention when they go into the grocery store, or when they try to pay the rent, right? Or when they try to pay off their student debt or pay off their car loan. They are really hurting. And it's evident to me, as a senior citizen who has to take an Uber or a Lyft, and I get into conversations with the drivers in these cars, and, they're scrambling to survive. Mm-hmm. And I've met several people who were downsized, who lost really good paying jobs, who have graduate degrees in either biochemistry or finance or healthcare, and they're driving Ubers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of what's left. You know, it's the bottom of the barrel. So you reached out to me a while ago and asked me if I'd do another
an update.
Yeah, an update of my you know, reading the script, the narration for the movie, and I did, and it's out now, and the website is heist-themovie2025.com. Is it available at other venues?
Well, if you go to their website and you click there, it's going to take you to Vimeo.com, where the streaming version resides. One of the things I want to emphasize is that this time around, the movie is free. Anybody can watch this through coming to our website. If they want to throw in a few bucks to help us get it out further, that would be great too. We'll accept those donations.
Sure.
But the movie is absolutely free. And what's new here is we put a new beginning on, which says, well, why are we re-releasing this movie 17 years later? Well, we'll kind of tell you why I've watched the movie. And then on the back end, we say, okay, we're in a different picture than we were in 2008. And that calls for very different strategies and really rethinking what America needs to be looking like now and in the future. And how do you resist a rapidly unfolding tyranny taking place in, the supposedly hotbed of democracy, the United States of America. So that's what's new. And we are updating regularly on our website, the latest stuff coming in and how the heist continues to unfold. And you even wrote an article 2 days ago called The Billionaire Coup, how the Supreme Court and corporate money captured America. And I don't know whether that was serendipity or what.
That was coincidence.
That's a great coincidence.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Right. And, look, you've been preaching all year, what is really happening and how very serious and dangerous this is. Our movie is just one small contribution to help people wrap their heads around, how could this happen?
Yeah.
This is the United States. It's not supposed to happen here.
Yeah.
And yet the groundwork began 50 years ago with this secret memo, which we go into great detail about. And oh, by the way, we also shine the spotlight on the Heritage Foundation, which came about because of the Powell memo of 6 billionaire families saying, we have to implement this Powell memo. So why don't we start these, quote, think tanks, which are really propaganda machines for the right.
Yep.
And the Heritage Foundation in 1980 wrote Mandate for Change. It was their version of Project 2025 in 1980,
right,
and it was given to the Reagan administration.
Yep.
And let me just say that what has been the goal all along of these 50 years? It's really simple. It's to deregulate the economy, to destroy government, because Ronald Reagan said famously, government is not the solution, government is the problem, right? And so that's been the agenda of the Republican Party for the last 50 years. How can you dismantle the American government and allow corporations to go berserk? And guess what? That's what we're witnessing.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Destroying. Go ahead.
We're talking with Donald Goldmacher, who is the producer of Heist-themovie2025.com, this extraordinary movie. And I'm curious, Donald, your thoughts. I don't recall that the movie gets into this, but now Donald Trump is basically aligning the United States, this national security memo or whatever it was called that was released last week, aligning the United States with Russia against Europe and against Ukraine, and has given Ukraine until Christmas, and then we're just going to walk away from it altogether and just leave them to the tender mercies of Putin. How does that tie in? I mean, is there a corporate tie into that?
Well, I think what you're seeing with Donald Trump is I've coined him as a mafia monarch imperialist to explain the various threads of this Republican coalition. And he clearly likes to be a tyrant. So he clearly is aligned with other tyrants. And to hell with democracy, to hell with alliances like NATO. And part of his malignant narcissism, to just put in the right diagnosis, because my other hat is I'm a community psychiatrist. Well, his malignant narcissism does not tolerate losers, as he always says. He doesn't like losers, right? So he sees Ukraine as a losing proposition, and he sees NATO as weak, which you can argue it is not totally incorrect. They are weak, and they better get their act together really quickly.
Right.
You know, I've spent a lot of time reading and studying World War II and the rise of Nazi Germany, and you know how ultimately, ironically, it was Russia, the Soviet Union at the time, that defeated the Nazis. The Americans were there, you know, last minute.
Yeah.
But the Russians had to fight Hitler beginning in June 1941.
Oh, they lost tens of millions of people.
Yes, over, you know, 20, 30 million.
Yeah.
We didn't arrive in Europe until June 1944.
Yep.
3 years later, and Stalin kept begging Roosevelt, please, invade, invade.
Yeah.
And it was Churchill who was actually the brakes on all of that. Anyway, that's an aside.
Yeah.
So you have an individual who was elected. How was this person elected twice now by the American people? Because he has two talents. He really is able to put his finger on the pulse of what people are really feeling out there. And secondly, he's a showman. You know, he had 13 years on The Apprentice.
Yeah, he was trained by NBC.
Yeah.
They spent
And
millions
by the way,
training
and he
him.
was also trained by Roy Cohn.
Yep.
Who people will have to look up because I'm not going to try to go into that now.
Well, I wrote
But
a book
Roy
about
Cohn,
it, The Last American
Yeah.
President. There's
Oh,
a
you
whole
did?
chapter about Roy Cohn in there, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Roy Cohn taught Donald Trump one thing: never admit you're wrong.
Yep. Yep.
And always
attack.
Always attack.
Yeah.
And keep suing.
Yeah.
Keep suing.
Yeah. And it's worked for him so far. I mean, you know, he's still on top of the. It's pretty remarkable.
And he is a tyrant. There's no question. And so he's comfortable with other tyrants.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm guessing it's probably true of a lot of CEOs too. I mean, one of the things we do know is the psychopaths in the executive suites are far more. Yeah, they're very, very common and all over the world.
And a lot of narcissists there too.
Yeah, there you go. Donald Goldmacher is the producer. Heist is the movie. The website is heist-themovie2025.com. Heist-themovie.com, 2025.com. Check it out. Donald, thank you so much for dropping by and for making this a brilliant piece of filmmaking.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Always
it's really an
pleasure.
honor.
Always a pleasure. We'll be back 18 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Republicans have no other health care plan than stealing money from you to give billionaires tax breaks. I'll tell you about that right after this. Stick around. And welcome back. David in North Miami Beach, Florida, listening on Progressive Voices. You are on the air. David, what's up?
Howdy. Yes. Welcome back. Can I plug my Substack page? I'm one of those ex-teachers turned drivers you were talking about.
Yeah, if you've got a Substack page and you want people to go to it, feel free to plug it.
Thank you. So it's Zapin, Z as in Zulu, A as in Apple, P as in Papa, E as in Echo, N as in November. So zapin.substack.com.
Okay.
Yeah. So I hope someday we'll talk about literacy in medieval times, like at the pre-recorded section. But my answer to your question about Trump and Putin, Trump sees Putin as a more vicious version of his older brother, part of that sibling rivalry dynamic we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas certainly Putin and maybe Trump want to be, an emperor like Tiberius, whereas Trump more wants to be a Wizard of Oz, and specifically the kind played by James Franco, or even from the 1900 book. So all the emphasis on silver and gold, and people are forced to wear green goggles so they think they see an Emerald City that isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the more cuddly version of the wizard we see in the 39 movie or the Jeff Goldblum current version.
Yeah, and I've heard that the most recent Wicked movie, Wizard of Oz movie, as it were, kind of has a subtext of what's going on in America right now. the corruption of government and institutions.
Right. One of the theories is that that version of Wizard of Oz was mostly based on William Jennings Bryan.
Yeah,
and
the lion was William Jennings Bryan.
Oh, well, fine, we can go with that.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
But again, the whole bimetallism, because we still had the crisis of 1896 that wasn't settled until the Klondike Gold Rush of 1906, by which time the book was already published.
Yeah.
So you have that question of, do you spread out the money like Keynes, or do you keep the money and hope for the best like Hayek did? And of course, people forget that both Adam Smith and Friedrich Hayek, wanted they wanted safety net.
Yes.
But
yeah, Adam Smith writes about that at some length in A Theory of Moral Sentiments, his first book, or maybe it was his second book. I'm not sure which one. I think it was his first book. But Adam Smith was, this was in the 1770s, by the way, was kind of the founder of this whole school of modern economics.
Right. Exactly.
And he warned us. He warned us.
Right.
About
this is exactly as America was trying to tear itself away from British mercantilism.
Yeah.
And as
everybody knows about his book, The Wealth of Nations.
Together, and we've come full circle.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's a good analysis. David, thank you for the call, and good luck with your Substack newsletter. It's 22 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of. I got one story to share with you about the Republican health care plan, and I'll be picking up your calls. So stay tuned. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Way back in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans started this rant about how the election of 1960, Jock Kennedy stole that election, and there's voter fraud in America. And it became a thing. They started this thing called Operation Eagle Eye. William Rehnquist was running it in Arizona, trying to intimidate Hispanics and African Americans into not voting, essentially. They have now used this claim that non-citizens are voting, this voter fraud claim, in virtually every red state to make it harder to vote, to purge people off the voting rolls, to make people's votes not counted with their exact signature matches. It's a scam. It's a grift that they've been running for 60 years, and the American media won't call them out on it. There's a whole piece about it called Trump and the GOP's Big Lie 2.0 over at HartmannReport.com. Please check it out. You'll find it fascinating.
They said it was about order, but the order was fear, and the fear was the point. They don't need the guns, they don't need the masks, just the sound of a boo in the dark. They call it law, but it feels like war, and it's breaking the nation's heart. Each window shattered, each cry ignored, each handcuffed prayer on the floor. They're not hunting ghosts or guarding doors. They're teaching us what pain is for. The brutality is the message.
25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So the Fed, by the way, just cut interest rates by a quarter point. which has got the stock market going up. Republicans have absolutely no health care plan. Keep in mind, the Republican health care plan, and I don't know why the media doesn't point this out more often, the Republican health care plan was published back in the 1980s by the Heritage Foundation. It was put into place in Massachusetts when Mitt Romney, the Republican governor of Massachusetts, installed it. He called it Romney Care. And Barack Obama picked it up and said, hey, this is kind of cool. You know, the corporations will be happy. We're going to give literally trillions of dollars in profits to big health insurance companies and big for-profit hospitals. And yet, at the same time, we can give, coverage to everybody. Well, it's gotten more and more and more expensive, and it's harder and harder to cover everybody. And so now the government is having to subsidize even those plans. And, this has started with the pandemic. And the Republicans voted this spring to stop those subsidies, not to extend the subsidies. And so you're seeing people whose ACA premiums are going to double and triple. 24 million Americans are going to see them go through the roof on January 1st. Do Republicans have any plan for this? Well, they're talking about, health savings accounts and, high-risk pools and stuff like that. But really the bottom line is they have no answer. Because Obamacare is the Republican health care plan, or at least it was back in the day. And so what are they going to do? I think this is going to blow up in their faces. But what say you? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I would add, by the way, as usual, the people who are suffering the most from this are low-income people in rural areas. In other words, Republican voters. They're being screwed by the GOP. We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear, but before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option, with $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy of The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. A $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes $2. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. This language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender non-conforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, The historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This is our moment. This is your moment and your movement. Stand with us. Stand with truth. Stand against the slide into authoritarianism. Call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org/donate. Let's make sure history echoes, but does not repeat. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag you're it. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
I'm dreaming of a bright Christmas where every culture shares delight. with tables full of joy and laughter, and every heart feels warm tonight. I'm dreaming of a bright Christmas with dishes from around the globe. May our bonds grow stronger as we dine, and may the season truly shine.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Kathy in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hey, Kathy, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I've often heard you refer to the Immigration Act of 1925 as reflecting who was in the country at that time. But I wanted to just make a little historical correction to that.
All right.
The quotas that were actually established by that act were based on the country of origin in the 1890 census. And, you know, some people might say, well, what's the difference? Because the mass migration from Eastern and Southern Europe of, for instance, Slavic and Italian Catholics and Jews from the Pale settlement in Russia didn't really begin until the late 1890s. And then, of course, and then just grew and grew and grew up until World War I, including all four of my grandparents. And so those immigration quotas, by using the 1890 census, when there weren't so many people weren't so many Catholics from that area and Jews, that kept the numbers down that could come from Eastern and of course that just reflects the anti-Catholic and anti-Semitic bias of the time. So if you actually look up, and I'd encourage you to look up the quotas, massive quotas from Northern and Western Europe for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's who was here in the country in 1890.
They wanted to keep America WASP.
Right. So it's true, white, but as you say, WASP. If you see those pictures of people getting off the boats in Ellis Island wearing babushkas, and those are largely from 1900, 1910. So those numbers. And, it's the quotas that allowed a young woman, impoverished woman from Scotland to come in and easily come in the United States and marry Fred Trump. But it also stopped many, many Jews from Germany from coming in, because in the quotas, I think the Jews are referred to as Hebrews, I think is the language that was used at that time. So I've often heard you say that, and my degree is in history. And I kind of specialized in ethnic and immigrant history. And every time I hear you say that, I think, I got to call.
Well, I appreciate that, Kathy.
I did.
Thank you so much.
And I don't have much else to do. It's snowing here again in Minnesota. So.
Okay. Well, it does that in the winter. I hope you have a wonderful and white holiday season. So.
Yeah, well, the snowy white. So.
There you go. That's what I meant, of course.
So thank you for allowing me to make that little correction.
Oh, you did a great job, Kathy. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Charlene in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Hey, Charlene, what's on your mind today? Charlene in Scranton, watching us on Facebook. Going once, going twice. I'm going to put Charlene on hold. She's been on hold for a while there, so Mateo, if you can pick her up, she's on line 3. John in Evanston, Illinois. Hey, John, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. What's on your mind?
Okay. The problem is health care, and we always miss the boat. Somebody said we need to put any solution on a bumper sticker. What do people want? No, they don't want Medicare for all. No, they don't want single payer. They want the government to pay everything.
Well, how is that not Medicare for all or single payer?
Well, actually, Tom, you see, the problem is it's all in branding. There was a guy named Tommy Douglas.
Yep. He was the
prime minister.
Yeah, he was the prime, and he wasn't the prime minister. He was the premier of Saskatchewan.
Premier.
Yeah, back in the 60s. Yeah. Yep.
He did it. You see, if the government is going to pay everything, who's going to be against that? Who's going to be against it?
Yeah, well, in Canada, the government doesn't quite pay everything.
No, don't tell me Canada. I'm saying right here. Like, for example, if Bernie...
Well, you know who's going to be against it, John, are the billionaires who don't want to pay their damn taxes. That's who's going to be against it.
No, wait. Not only that, the insurance companies will be out of business.
Oh, yeah, and this is a multi-hundred billion dollar a year industry. You're right. Yeah.
And that is
and they own a lot of politicians because 5 Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court said it's okay.
I know, but we got to save America. And I tell you, we ought to try it. I would suggest we try it in New York City for, let's say, an
Here's the problem,
period.
John. We tried this in Vermont. I lived in Vermont, in fact, when Peter Shumlin was elected our governor. He was the head of the Senate, I think. And his whole platform was, we're going to make Vermont single payer. And what they discovered, and one of my very best friends, Hal Cohen, was, Peter appointed him the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, or whatever that title is, the guy who implemented it in Vermont. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had a front row seat here. And what they discovered was that if you declare your state a single payer state, then all of the Medicaid and Medicare money that comes in through the federal government ceases to come into your state. And so Bernie and multiple other progressive Democrats have repeatedly proposed legislation to offer any state that wants it a waiver so that that money can still continue to come into the state, but basically come in as block grants to go into the pool.
That's why it shouldn't be called single payer. It should be the government will pay for everything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I like it. You're talking about a new branding policy. I get it, John. You're starting to get redundant here, so I'm going to move along. But thank you. Gar in Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, Gar, what's on your mind today?
How you doing today, Tom?
I'm fine. What's up?
Oh, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just got finished reading Mary Trump's book. I don't believe Donald Trump is racist. After reading that book, I don't see how the Democrats lost. I really don't. I mean, Tom, she wrote in that book where he was a Frankenstein monster with no conscience.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now. Come on, Tom. And I don't blame him. I blame what's underneath him and what's behind him.
Yeah.
Because we know who he is. And he's not a racist because he don't like nobody.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that, Gar. He just hates everybody.
Somalia to throw the scent off. That's why he used Somalia. He say why he used Haitians because he's trying to throw the scent off.
Yeah, I mean, look who he's really screwing is rural white people. That's who he's really screwing.
He dog his
badly.
own family.
Yeah.
He treated his own family bad.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he told his nephew.
Bad, how you think you're going to treat the American people?
Right. He told he told his brother that his brother came to him and wanted some money to keep his nephew alive. He was on some sort of a machine, and Donald said, "Why don't you just let him die?" At least according to that story.
And she talks about his dad.
Mm-hmm.
His dad made him like that. His mom didn't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
She said, but one thing she said, that he would never show no love.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he don't know how to love.
Yeah.
I mean, that book is cold. Tom, that was hard reading.
Yeah.
It took me almost 2 months to read that book.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, that's how cold-blooded he is, that he was brought up.
Yeah, I get it, Gar. I get it. Gar, it's always nice hearing from you. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. It's 44 minutes past the hour and a half, 44 and a half. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, what? You're kidding, right? No, the Supreme Court screwed that one up badly. And welcome back, Charlene in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Hey, Charlene, I understand you've got your audio working now? Yeah, I do.
Oh, good. What that last man said, I'm laughing.
Yeah. He's not a racist. He hates everybody.
I read the same book. I read the same book and almost came to the same conclusion. He's just pure evil, and he's just using black and brown people as a silver tray to hand to people while he picks their pockets.
Yep.
So,
I think you're right.
But anyway, that's not what I call, but I agree with that guy. The book is hard to read. I finished it. I never finished it. I tossed it on the shelf and never looked at it again because the cruelty of that family amongst themselves was staggering.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, the question
I've interviewed Mary Trump about it, and I've skimmed the book. I haven't read every word of it, but But back to what you called about.
What I called about was a few months back, I heard Trump saying something about that the immigrants kind of piggybacked, that's not his words, but the best way I took it, on the 14th Amendment, and it wasn't meant for immigrants. It was meant for black people who were slaves. There were not citizens at the time. They were property, but not citizens. Correct. And slaves have been here since what? The 1500s, 1600s, and they started it almost as soon as they landed.
Yep.
The question is, I always knew that people of any nationality came here anywhere else, had a baby, and the baby was considered a citizen if the parents went back. It was a dual citizen, whatever. How is he saying that the immigrants piggybacked, and that's why he's got to play around with the 14th Amendment? And I just think he's looking. I don't understand how they're related. I think he's just looking for a way to put some more people in Alligator, Alcatraz.
I agree.
And
not just that, Charlene.
They're my black friends, you need to brush up on your Swahili and your Nigerian. You might be going, and some of them said, good, send me back.
Yeah.
I don't care.
That's where I was going, because they're talking about remigration now. They're talking about basically taking people who are U.S. citizens and stripping them of their citizenship and sending them back to whatever country they originally came from. These would be first-generation immigrants, but they're also talking about going after second-generation immigrants. And so, I think the goal of this whole thing, MAGA has been misnamed. It's Make America WASP again, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, make America white again, basically. It should be MAWA. And, that's their real agenda. I absolutely believe that. And I don't think that you have to be credulous to believe that. It's everything they do and everything they say Trump yesterday in his rally just going off on a rant about Somalis, which is code for black people. It's just, I think he is a racist, but I think he also is, using the racism. I've said it many times on this program. When I first started this show and throughout my life, I always knew racist white people, but I always figured they were maybe 10 to 20% of the population, the exception to the rule. I have now come to the conclusion it's about half of white people. Because a little more than half white people consistently vote for these kind of things, for these kind of people. So, Charlene, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It's nice to hear from you. I appreciate the call. Thank you. It's 49 minutes past the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out.
There's a man with a crown made of spray-on gold, throwing tantrums in tweets, acting 5 years old. He bought the news, then broke the mic, cashed a check from CBS, killed the late night. They took Colbert off the air and put a monitor in the chair. Truth became bias, facts turned to sin. 'Cause you're not supposed to laugh at the king. You're not supposed to laugh at the king.
51 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Mick in Vashon Island, Washington. Hey, Mick, what's up?
Well, thank you for taking my call, Tom. First off, I'm glad you're perpendicular. So am I. And the thing I want to bring up is a solution for you. I hope this is good news for all the independents that listen out there. And I'm tired of the rhetoric and the, especially the promotional, if it leads, it bleeds, it leads. And so my point that I'm going to make here is I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. And that is the West Coast needs to separate itself from the rest of the country. This is not new. Cascadia tried to do it, but there was a gold rush, and that's what failed.
Well, we're sort of doing that right now with regard to the CDC and FDA and all that. We've created our own, in Oregon, Washington, and California, we've created our own, health, I don't know what it's called, but or even if it's an agency, but say what? Coalition, yeah, it's a coalition. And, we've got different vaccine recommendations and things like that from the federal government.
Well, it goes bigger than that, Tom.
Of course.
California is the fifth largest economy. We have the salad bowl that feeds most of the country out there. Most of the crops feed the country. We have the same number of people as Australia and Canada that combined. We have less territory than they have, so you're trying to get a lot of things getting on there. And then you got lots of rich people that live on the West Coast. You can name many of them, as you know. But the point I'm trying to say is that we're in a better position by walking our talk and showing Trump by action that we don't want to be part of his circus anymore.
Yeah.
And the best way to do this is just say we're leaving because we got Mexico to the south, Canada to the north. We got the Asian community out there ready to accept our goods. We got ports up and down. I want to be the Portugal.
Yeah.
I
6 months ago, I would have dismissed this kind of talk, Mick, but I think that, we've got 3 more years of Trump and this insanity.
No, we don't.
And I suspect that more and more you're going to hear this kind of talk from not just the East Coast, not just the West Coast, but also the East Coast. And and maybe the United States will end up like Europe with becoming essentially Balkanized. Well, Balkanized is probably the wrong word, but I get it.
But you brought up medical earlier, and you know what, Tom? The medical thing in California is the result of not getting much back from their dollar that they put into the system.
Yep. CalCare. Yep. Mick, I got to run, but thank you very much. Good point. But Johan in Los Angeles, speaking of California, Johan in L.A. Hey, Johan, what's up?
What can people who retired from employers and corporations have like public option of Medicare for all after they retire, because they come back to workforce and try to get their health care back after they retire.
Well,
how can we stop that from happening? Like, make sure they retire.
Well, if everybody in the country has access to the same health care system, and and by the way, at the insistence of Tom from Pennsylvania, I did look up the Medicare for All proposal and read it, and it does say that if you're in a union and you want to have something better than what the federal government is offering, supplemental plans are acceptable. The health insurance companies can sell supplemental plans. But I think if everybody in the country has the same plan, then that whole concern is gone, Johan.
You Is it because of the insurance company or the profit making thing, or something else?
Yeah, it's getting around the profit motive. Yeah, exactly. Johan, thanks for the call. Patty in L.A. Hey, Patty, what's on your mind today?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I was calling because, according to Jasmine Crockett, Trump's golfing at Mar-a-Lago has cost us over $26 million.
That's correct.
Eisenhower played golf every day. I know this because my father was provost marshal in Quantico, Virginia during the Eisenhower administration.
Right, but he played on federal property, and it didn't cost a penny.
Yeah, exactly. And that is 20 minutes away from the White House.
Yep.
There is no reason in hell, pardon me, that Trump can't do that.
Oh, but here's the reason, Patty. You know, Trump goes down there and he holds fundraisers. He gets his people giving him $1 million a year for membership. The Secret Service has to stay in his hotel there at $1,000 a night. I mean, you know, it's a scam. It's a grift.
I know it's a scam, but why isn't there more attention paid to that?
Well, that's a good question. I have to point. Our media is too Republican friendly. Patty, I'm out of time. I'm sorry, but thank you for the call. And that was brilliant. You know that your father knew about this. I had completely forgotten. That was after Eisenhower had his heart attack. He probably played before that, but he got real religious about it after the heart attack. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag your ed. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe. Happy holidays and all that. And I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
We need to talk about something that every American needs to hear, but before we dive in, let me tell you what's on the table for Match Day, because these thank you gifts matter and your impact is doubled today. A $20 one-time gift, mystery sticker, $60 or $5 a month, the RAM medical contribution option. With $144 or $12 a month, a copy, an autographed copy of The Last American President, autographed by me. It's the only way to get one. $240 gift, the virtual meet and greet. $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch. Today, because of our frontline funders, every dollar you give becomes two. This is thus the strongest day to step up. Now, while you're donating, let's talk about news and about history, because sometimes history doesn't repeat, but it whispers, and some days it shouts, like today. Donald Trump ordered the FBI, DOJ, and over 200 federal joint terrorism task forces to investigate any person or group who is, quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality, end of quote. Now, let me be clear. This language being used, the framing, the implication that certain people, certain identities, certain ideas should be monitored or investigated, that's the kind of talk that should send a chill down the spine of anyone who knows their history, because we've seen this before. In the 1930s, Magnus Hirschfeld, a socialist, physician, sexologist, and pioneer in transgender and LGBTQ+ rights, founded the Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin. It was a center of learning, science, compassion, and truth. And it was the first group targeted by the Nazis, before the camps, before the invasions. It was Hirschfeld's community. His institute was raided, his books were burned. That's a famous picture of the book burning from the Nazis. His research was destroyed. Transgender people, gay people, gender non-conforming people were singled out as degenerates and enemies and corrupting influences. The fascist strategy was simple. Dehumanize first, police second, destroy third. And when I hear powerful people in America today using rhetoric that suggests certain identities or political views make someone suspect or dangerous or un-American, the historian in me, the student of fascism in me, hears that echo. That's why independent media matters. Because corporate media will not draw these lines together. They're too afraid of losing access or getting yelled at on Twitter by the powerful. But we will draw those lines because history demands it. So before we roll this next clip, a warning about the rise of fascism and the danger of dehumanizing entire groups, I'm asking you, please call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate right now. Your gift is matched, your voice is doubled, your courage is multiplied, and your donation today can help stop the next attack by the Trump administration on our independent media.
Democracy has disappeared in several other great nations, not because the people of those nations disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of government confusion, government weakness. Finally, in desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. History proves that dictatorships do not grow out of strong and successful governments, but out of weak and helpless ones.
And let me drive it home. It's democracy versus authoritarianism. It's truth versus propaganda. It's compassion versus cruelty. It's whether America slides into the same old trap that nations before us have fallen into, where the government starts naming certain people as suspects, certain ideas as dangerous, certain communities as un-American, and then uses state power to enforce those labels. This is how it started for Hirschfeld. This is how it has started in every authoritarian regime. The target shifts, but the tactic does not. And the only antidote is an informed, empowered public that refuses to let the powerful decide which Americans count. That's where Free Speech TV comes in. We are the firewall. We are the early warning system. We are the space where you can still hear the truth, unfiltered and unbought, but only because of you. We don't have the corporations, we don't have billionaires, we have viewers. And on match day, viewers have twice the power. So while you're sitting there thinking somebody should do something, well, you are somebody, and this is something. So call 877-378-8669 or visit freespeech.org/donate. Your $20 becomes $40, your $60 becomes $120, your $10 a month becomes $20 a month for the first 3 months. And you're not just supporting a network, you're supporting truth. You're supporting resistance. You're supporting the idea that the radical Hirschfeld-era idea that every human being deserves dignity, safety, and a voice. This is our moment. This is your moment and your movement. Stand with us. Stand with truth. Stand against the slide into authoritarianism. Call 877-378-8669 or go to freespeech.org/donate. Let's make sure history echoes but does not repeat.